I don't see it on, there it is. Now I see it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Apologies.
I didn't see it. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. No, I thank you. I thought I had done it and it didn't work. So I appreciate that. Not going to start over. We'll just keep going from here. Um so certification is due the following Friday after the staff eval. So this Wednesday you want to get your staff eval in, and then the following week's Friday is the certification that is due. So if you're uploading now, you won't really have the opportunity to view your data at level 2 in time to make any changes. Just know that. Coming up in November, we have staff snapshot and staff assignment. Preliminary data are due, and we'll be talking about data pulls for this later in the meeting. Early January, and this is the kicker every year, so put your seatbelts on. SED requires Beds Day enrollment, FERPL, and special education data. What this really means is that you should migrate these data before your winter holiday break, and I can't really stress that enough, because that this year it's January 5th is the data is due, and the certification is the 8th, so that sneaks up on you at the beginning of the year. So you want to make sure that you have all that data in before you leave for any winter breaks that you have scheduled. Later in January, you also have your student digital resources coming due. So you should be doing those surveys now. I'll say it now, and I think we'll say it again later in the meeting. This is an annual collection. Once upon a time, it wasn't collected by SIRS. Now it is. And it has to be a new survey every year. So you can't use last year's data for that. You do need to do a new survey, and that needs to get in by the, it says here the 26th, so the Wednesday before that. Okay. So here are a few links that you should bookmark so that you can easily reference them throughout the year. We usually provide these links in our meetings, and these are the new links for the 23-24 school year. The reporting timeline source page is updated annually. And you'll be able to access current information, current year information. And then the other two links are specific to the deadlines and memo documents for this year in particular. While the MHRIC also creates deadlines and timelines for you, we use these documents as our source material, and you should become familiar with them as well. All right, so with that, I'm going to pass the baton to the one and only Samantha Stokas.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. All right, if we could move on to the next slide, thank you. So I'm going to go over some brief level 0 updates that have been happening behind the scenes. So we had the 19.0 level 0 update that aligns with all the new New York State data reporting requirements for the 23-24 school year that we're going to go through in our presentation today. But if you're in level 0 already, which most of you are, you'll notice that our dashboard now has the date format that the rest of level 0 requires. So it'll be the year, month, day format. And you may also have noticed some of the previous informational errors in prior years. They've been changed to what we call a warning fatal error. So as you're using level 0 this year, you may notice those changes. So a warning fatal error means that the error either has to be corrected or temporarily deleted and fixed in your source system to migrate your data. So just pay attention to those as you're going through the year. All right, so I know it's only October 17th, but we've already had another update, which we'll get to in a moment. But part of that 19.0 release is also the attendance breakdown report. So The only thing that changed on this particular report is it used to have present and tardy without the modalities. There was an additional line there, but since that is no longer part of the data reporting, those have been removed. So it's a little cleaner. It's a little bit smaller. You'll see that now you can only see the present and tardy codes for in and out on the list, which is what is currently being reported by your districts. All right. So moving on to our second update of the year is so we're already on 19.0A. Um, and we're probably going to have some more coming your way. But this update it just corrected a few issues with the level 0 error logic. So for day calendar and for our new people, you'll notice you see how that error code says DC 2418. So DC for day calendar. So you can kind of tell as you're getting these errors what domain they're under by how they're coded. But for that error, we're now excluding preschool students. So that error is no longer coming up. And then for the enrollment error, the EE2092, it does now exclude students with an 8,300 enrollment that turned 18. So there were some issues with the logic behind the scenes, um, but you should no longer have those errors because we are now currently on this version. Okay. And then the third last update of the 19.A. So there's 6 staff assignment codes that require a percent time field to be filled in, which we will discuss that new requirement shortly during our staff section. But just in regards to level 0 with this update, there was an error coming up. And one of our districts actually found this. There was 0 or 0.00, which is the range of that field. It wasn't accepting it. So that has also been fixed in our recent update. Okay. And recently, to align with data privacy standards, we will now deactivate any level 0 accounts that haven't been accessed for 12 or more months. So our data warehouse sent an email out to our DDC listserv to advise districts of this process and to send over any edits by September 15th. But just keep in mind this is going to be an ongoing process by our data warehouse to keep accounts up to date because we don't want people accessing student data or staff data that shouldn't be. So when you're offboarding a staff member, just keep in mind, you have your internal access, but also keep in mind of any MHRIC programs that they may have access to that you might need to let us know about stopping their access. So with that,
We have a
yeah.
question
yeah,
from Kathy. Does level 0 expiration include accounts which are only used for ASAP? And I forget how we dealt with that, so I'll let you or Helen take on that.
Yes.
yeah, because they share credentials. So
And she's saying because they never log in, but don't they need to log in to update their password?
They would need to log in to update a password, yes. So if they're using it and they haven't logged in for 12 months, there's no way they should be able to use ASAP with an expired password.
And she says,
If they are using ASAP with an expired password, please let us know that. That means that there's something terribly, terribly wrong in the background. And we would need to know that, please.
And Kristen would like to know who should be notified if they have a level 0 account that needs to be inactivated. That'd be data warehouse at mhric.org, correct?
yes.
Okay. One more question. Do ASAP and bars show up on the level 1 report for users? No, they would all no.
No, they're separate. So
Yeah.
that level 1 report is for level 1 users only. ASAP shares credentials with level 0, and bars is something a separate access.
For ASAP, if you have any questions, that would send it to datawarehouse@mhric.org if you have any questions there. And for bars, that would be the testing department, I
Yes.
believe. So if you have questions on who has access to bars, that would be the place to go, although I think they review their users periodically as well.
They do, yeah.
So.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'll be back later with lots more information. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Pam.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So in the topic of things that are new, and just to take it outside the scope of, SED, new SED stuff, I just wanted to mention some other new information. So have you heard the latest news on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? They were seen holding hands. I wish I could hear. This is the only downside of the virtual meeting. I can't hear if I made anybody chuckle whatsoever.
You made me laugh.
Okay, I got all right. So on to the serious stuff now and the SED updates. So we have SED has a new focus point. Districts are required to report 2 data points reflecting teacher experience, and this has been ongoing for quite a while. You're required to report in-staff snapshot, the years in district, and also the total years teaching experience. So many districts, because the total years teaching experience is something that you need to obtain from the individual as they enter your district. Many districts are reporting the same number for both and not including the years outside the district in the total years of teaching experience. SED guidance states that teachers new to a district, charter school, or BOCES should be asked to provide their years of prior teaching experience. The district is not required to verify that information. It's something that, given the, what qualifies as years of teaching experience, that the incoming staff member should be able to provide to them. So then you would combine all the years of professional education experience, including other public school districts, religious and independent schools, and BOCES. Both in and out of state professional education experiences may be counted. So please review this information reported for your teachers and update the total years of experience as appropriate. This does have a public-facing consequence. So this information is included indirectly in the school report card in the number of inexperienced teachers reported. Any teacher that has less than 4 years experience is considered inexperienced. If a teacher comes into your district after having taught 10 years in another district, you certainly don't want them to be reported as inexperienced. You want them to move into the experienced category. So that's just a little reminder to go back and maybe dig into that data and see if there's any issues with that. Okay, next slide. Okay, along with the percent field that Sam mentioned a moment ago, these new staff assignment codes are required for social workers, counselors, nurses, and school psychologists only. So there's 6 assignment codes that require this new staff assignment field and the percent field. So these codes I actually found a bit confusing. The good news is that the majority of cases, if you have a district employee working in a district building, you will report option 1 in district. That's going to take care of the majority of those for those staff members that need to be reported. Remember, only those specific assignment codes: social workers, counselors, nurses, and school psychologists. The remaining codes will be used as follows. Situation 1, you have an individual working in your building that is employed by another district or BOCES. Think incidental staff members here. That person would be contracted in, reported as contracted in. If you are a public school district, it would be contracted in public, similarly and logically. If you were a private school district, it would be contracted in private. And then the final situation, the last 2, you have an individual employed by your district that is contracted out to work in another public or private school. In this case, you would use one of the last two codes to indicate that situation. Are there any questions here?
We have one question in the
Okay,
comment. Yes, I had import errors yesterday when sending staff assignment. Level 0 didn't recognize the old elementary and high school counselor codes because they're gone and replaced
Yeah.
with a K-12 counselor. So they
Yes.
changed them all to the new K-12 code and the errors went away.
Right, and that's, thank you for the segue. We're gonna talk about that in just a moment. Yes, those old individual elementary school counselors, high school counselors, those codes all did go away. The only counselor code that's left is the 2117 for K-12. Okay. Thanks, Jamie. All right. And one other additional comment on these fields. These are coming out of staff snapshot. And so yeah, so they're coming out of your HR systems, which may or may not support this information yet. State Ed recognizes that not everybody has the ability to put this information into their HR systems yet. So you will receive informational errors until January. And by then, SED expects that the HR vendors will have made these fields available to you. Okay, and to get a little more specific, the next slide, please, Helen.
Before we move on, Pam, we have one question.
Okay.
Would contracted out private not count a nurse in beds counts? We have a nurse who works at a private school, and in the past it was misleading because our nurse to student ratio was off.
That's a great question, Kathy. I'm gonna have to take that one offline and get back to you, because I honestly do not know the answer to that yet. Sorry about that. All righty. Okay, so to get a little more specific, let's back up a step. If you have a staff member who is assigned, I'm going to talk about staff assignment in general here. Okay. If you have a staff member who is assigned to a single building, you will report one staff snapshot record with the location specified as the building, and one, possibly more, staff assignment records with a location specified as the building. So if you have an employee who only works in one district, then, or in one building, then you're going to report both staff snapshot and staff assignment with that specific building location. And I did say, or more staff assignment records. And that comes in if they have more than one assignment, or if they are a principal, but only assigned to specific grade level. That gets into details, but the takeaway from this is there's a one-to-one correlation. If the staff member is in one building, staff snapshot will say that building location, and staff assignment will show that building location. So then if you have a staff member who is assigned to more than one building, you're going to report only one staff snapshot record. That's all you can report. The location on the staff snapshot record will be district. You will then report multiple staff assignment records, one for each building that the staff member is assigned to. In prior years, oftentimes districts reported that staff member with only one assignment record, and that assignment record was a district location. We don't want that to happen anymore. There's a reason for that. I'll explain that in just a moment. But so if the staff member is assigned to more than one district, staff snapshot shows district, the staff assignment, you have multiple records, one for each building. Okay, so this information is reported in the school report card. If you do not have a staff assignment record for each building, it will appear that some buildings may not have a nurse or a social worker or a counselor assigned. So you want to make sure that you're linking that staff member in these 6 assignment areas to the buildings that they are assigned to. Okay. And then also, as we alluded to earlier, for each of these assignments, you're going to report the percentage of time in the building. So if you have one staff member assigned to 2 different buildings, you may report them as 50% in one and 50% in the other, just to indicate that they are working in both and the amount of time, or the percentage of time they are in each. So mathematically, this comment here that the field cannot exceed 100, well, that mathematically makes sense because you can't do something for more than 100% of the time. And if you are an itinerant teacher, you would only report the percentage of time that you're working in the district. So if that teacher, itinerant teacher, actually not teacher, excuse me, staff member, itinerant staff member is employed 50% of the time in your district, you would report them as 50% of the time in that particular assignment. I'm going to go on to mention one possible point of confusion with these codes. This is another thing that you should take a look at to see if you have any other codes reported. So for psychologists and social workers, there are 2 codes that do not appear on this list and do not require that the new fields be reported. They are the assignment code 1526, which is reported as psychologist, and assignment code 1528, which is for social worker. I asked SED why they were not included, and the response I received was that schools only employ school psychologists or school social workers who have PPS certification. There may be instances where they contract with a private social worker or psychologist, but they would not have the PPS certification. Okay, and the indication was that this was not a common situation. And they also said, additionally, they cannot do so in lieu of hiring a school social worker or school psychologist. That's why they're only looking at these particular assignment codes. So you may want to take a look and see if you have any of the 1526 or 1528 codes reported. Way back when we first did this, it may, that may have been the, when you're searching the list, you may have seen psychologists and said, okay, let's do that, not realizing that there was a difference between the 2 codes, and make sure that if they should be, if they should not be a 1526 or 1528, that they're changed over to one of the 6 codes here, and that the percentages are reported. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yes, we have a few questions.
Okay. I kind of figured we would.
Yeah, it's a new topic. So the first one is, can they be assigned to the district at 100% instead of the individual buildings if they work in all the buildings?
No, they should have a staff assignment record in each specific location, even if it's 25% in each building, or if you had, well, on the extreme, if you had 100 buildings, it'd be 1% in each building. But
Right.
they should have a staff assignment record for each individual building.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then someone else is just confirming, if a staff member works in multiple buildings, they are reported as the district location and then given multiple assignments for each school within the district with the percentage of time spent there.
That's correct. The district location would appear on the staff snapshot record.
Exactly.
And the specific buildings would be on the staff assignment record. Okay.
Which another person is confirming in the past how they reported staff snapshot with the record for staff in multiple buildings with a district location, and then a staff assignment record for that staff in each building. So the same question, if they're just verifying that it's correct. Or
right.
do
You would only ever have, you actually can only report one staff snapshot record. So you're only going to have one staff snapshot record, and that's why you would put the district code on there.
Yes. And then someone else said possibly the codes for the nurses are flipped. They have 2211 as school nurse RN. So we'll have to check that.
We can double check that, and when we send out, we'll update it when we send out the the slide deck.
I do see that in SIRS, so we'll update that. I'll make a note of it now.
Okay.
We have a few more questions.
Okay.
So if a speech teacher goes 10% to a private school within our district, do we include that private school building?
No. Actually, I was asked that question, and I don't have the answer at my fingertips, but I know the answer is no, that you would just report the percentage of time that they're in your buildings. Actually, speech teachers aren't on the list. Let me go back. Speech teachers are not one of the 6 categories that need to report the percentage.
Right.
So that was easier.
Yes, the percentage only applies to these assignments. Okay, so another question, if we have contract workers, psychologists, then do they need staff snapshot and assignment, or no, because they are contract workers?
If they are contract workers, you do need to report them, and they would need staff snapshot and staff assignment records.
Okay. Another question, educational experience. At one time, were we only reporting experience in New York State? Is out of state experience new? That did come up. I remember
That did
that.
come up, and
Yes.
there was actually a bit of confusion on it. I believe that the out-of-state experience does count.
Yes.
We did
That
confirm that.
Yeah, that's in SIRS now. I can find the page and put it in the chat in a moment. Okay, another question. If an employee is district assigned but only goes where needed and no set time at the buildings, how to report that?
In that case, I would report them. If you have a roaming staff member, say a social worker or a counselor, who goes between different buildings and has no schedule, the purpose of this is to, in your public facing data, is to show that you do have counselors at each building. So if you have a permanently assigned counselor at that building, then I would, it's fine to report that roaming person as a district assignment. If you don't have a counselor, well, I'm just using counselor as an example. If you don't have a counselor at one particular building and this roaming counselor covers that building, then I would report that assignment in that building with a percentage. Even if there's no set time, you can estimate approximately. So the idea is to show coverage for all your buildings. Yes, it's okay not to add up to 100%.
Okay. And
same question for nurse. That was Kathy's question.
Yep.
And
then asking for a Q&A of all the questions so we can refer back later.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just...
Yeah, we'll print off the chat and
put
the answers in and distribute. If a speech teacher goes 10% to a private, was that the one, 10% to a private school? You do not need to report, since you likely don't have that private school as a district building. You're not going to be able to report the percentage of time in that building. So, and state ed isn't looking to gather that data. They're looking to gather the data for your district buildings. So,
and just going back to that experience outside of New York State, I don't see it in SIRS, but I think it might have been a data support ticket we were working on.
okay.
I'll have to go back and check into that one for you, and I'll put it in the Q&A.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address the question about the chat. When we send out the recording at some point after today's meeting, the running list of the chat is always included in that Zoom window, so you can always reference back to the chat that way. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so I think they're looking for the answers with the chat. So we'll have to talk about how we're gonna disperse that then. There
Yeah,
is
we'll
another
we'll take a
question.
look at that and maybe even just, summarize it into an FAQ on this new topic in particular.
Yeah.
Okay. I see Sherry's question about the psychologist from Astor Day not having a teach ID. Anybody can apply for a teach ID through New York
Yes.
State. There's a process to do that. And if you contact Data Warehouse, we can send you the information on how to do that. Okay.
And that's
All
all the
right.
questions, Pam.
That's it?
Yep, that's
Okay,
it.
I'm done now. Let's talk about Taylor and Travis. No, we'll move on. All right. Let's not. Yes, I kind of agree, Julie. All right. So this one's fairly straightforward compared to the topic we just discussed. New codes were added and old codes were removed. And as Jamie had mentioned earlier, many of the removed codes are your school level counselors, and the only counselor code that remained was 2117, and it was changed to a K-12 counselor. And also, I mean, this new list is interesting, but you also should be taking a look at staff assignment codes. And if you have individuals hired in your district in these particular areas, this is kind of a just a heads up to say you should have a staff snapshot record, and you should have a staff assignment record for anybody who has a staff assignment on the list. So that's just a good reminder to go back and take a look at that and make sure you're reporting everybody you should. And which leads to but they don't have a teach ID question. And again, there are ways for staff members who are not teachers to get a New York State teach ID. It's kind of a misnomer at this point. Those are IDs that are not only assigned to teachers. Okay. Moving on. All right, crisis code. We reached out to all of you recently about the New York State crisis code. And because there was some additional Title III funding available for students who were reported with a crisis code who were also immigrants. But the deadline for that reporting, although it's come and gone, the crisis code is a new field last year. It is required to be reported, and it's required to be reported throughout the school year. So a little clarification on when it should be used. It should only be reported in the first year in a New York State school coming directly from the crisis situation. Okay. There is a new informational error that says that the crisis code was reported in a previous school year, and therefore it would not be valid in the current school year. I believe that is a level 0 error and also a level 1C error. And then some SMSs have implemented, when they first implemented this last year, they were implemented as either a checkbox or a drop down on demographic with no start and end date associated with it. So if it was reported last year in a SMS that is set up this way, the only way to prevent it from reporting this year is to uncheck or remove the data for now. Vendors have been notified of the requirement that it's only reported in the first year, because obviously you do not want to delete historical information from your system. So you may see some changes coming out to the SMSs in that area, and that's the reason for it. But State Ed is collecting the crisis indicator only in the first year for students coming directly from the crisis situation. Okay. Any questions there?
We have one question. How do you verify if a student is coming from a crisis situation?
That needs to be obtained during the registration process.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a formal scenario as to how to ask those questions. If you have any questions about whether you should be asking, I know with like asking questions about immigrants. It's a sensitive situation. If you have any concerns about asking the questions, due to the sensitivity of the questions, I would suggest you discuss this with your school council in order to make sure that you're not asking something that you shouldn't. I think immigrant is more sensitive than this, but just knowing what school they previously attended should give you an indication of, if they're coming from an area that's been impacted by a crisis.
And there's a comment, multiple districts said that and BOCES say
Yeah.
they collected at registration, and then somebody mentioned maybe the McKinney-Vento liaison would have the information as well.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of, just one additional thing that gets taken care of at registration. Be good to your registrars. So, all right, anything else?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay. All right. We have a new requirement for this year for homeschoolers who are classified. Previously, you reported these students with a 5905 if they were enrolled and homeschooled and they were classified and they were receiving services. The new requirement is that you will report them whether or not they are receiving services. And this aligns with what the changes that were made last year to report any classified student, whether or not they are receiving services. And this is just carrying that on into the area of homeschool students. And this change obviously will require that Frontline will now export that type of disability record for students who are not receiving services. So, all right, that's
No questions.
no questions. Okay, I've got another easy one here. We have a new exit enrollment code. This only applies to students in P-TECH programs. Previously, if you had a P-TECH student, and this did happen quite a bit, you had a P-TECH student who completed both their high school graduation requirement and their associate's degree requirement within the 4 years. Okay, and previously you had to exit them with their graduation information in July or June, and then you had to wait and exit them from P-TECH in August, even though they had actually completed by June. You now have a new exit code, a 0071, that you can enter in June that indicates that they completed both. Kudos to them, and then not worry about rolling them forward into the next school year. Okay. Do I have any other questions?
We do, going back to homeschoolers.
Okay.
So if the district tracks homeschool students without an IEP, what is the enrollment code?
It wouldn't be students without an IEP. It would be students without services. It's okay.
So if they take a New York State assessment, they'll have to be reported with a 0011. But if you're just tracking them in your student management system, I know certain SMSs won't extract certain buildings with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and some districts do report all homeschool students.
Right.
So if they're not being reported because they're classified, then you would not use the 5905, you would use the 0011.
So the next question, will partner project fact area open in level 0 soon? We have P-TECH related errors in the enrollment area.
Okay.
So
yeah, we can
see.
take a look at that and get back to you directly. When we initially opened it up, there was a problem, and we have to make sure that's resolved, and we will get that open as soon as possible.
Yes. Okay, and the next one, Do we have to start reporting students with 5905 in homeschool, or when do we have to start reporting?
Classified students is something that should have been done all along with reporting those with a 5905. Classified, excuse me, let me qualify that. Classified students who were receiving services. If you have classified students in homeschool now that are not receiving services, then you would have to start putting those in as soon as possible.
Okay, and that's all the questions for now, Pam.
Okay. I'm glad everybody had their coffee this morning.
Get all the questions out with Pam.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Oh, 8,300. Okay, 8,300 enrollment codes, which were new for us last year, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. And the only new part here is the 20 consecutive days of absence. Last year, when they initially put this out in the service manual, they said that students can be exited to an 80, students who are not attending could be exited after 20 consecutive days of absence. They've withdrawn that. So, using your best judgment as to whether or not the student is still, anywhere in your, needs to be reported for census purposes only. That exit date you do not have to wait the 20 days of absence in order to exit them to, for census. Okay. And the remaining bullets on this slide are just a reminder on the use of the grade level UNK or unknown. If they were reported last year and you reported them in the grade level that they had been in when they left, then this year, the only enrollment grade level that you can use is unknown. Okay. And just a final reminder that this is not used by charter schools. Any questions on 8,300?
Not yet.
Okay, good. Yay. No, ask questions. I'm good. I'm ready to handle
We're
it.
just joking.
Yep. Okay. All right. Next up, just to clarify, if student misses 10 to 15 consecutive days, they can be 8,300. Yeah, as long as you've done your due diligence to determine that the student, is not going to be returning to school. It doesn't count as a dropout until they're exited. The only, actually, I'm trying to think this through.
Yeah.
If they are grade 9 or above and they've already been entered in a cohort, then yes, they will count as a dropout. So in the year that they are no longer of compulsory school age, you will exit them with the appropriate code, which in all likelihood will be a dropout code. Okay, so if they're prior to entering a cohort, then they will not count towards your, yes, Jamie, that's exactly it. It doesn't count as a dropout until they pass compulsory school age. So
you can also see that on 226 page in the SIRS.
okay. Yes, correct. I'm sorry, I'm reading and sorry, I'm not repeating it out to everybody. Okay. So, all right, I do two things well. So otherwise they stay enrolled as an 8,300 every year until they pass compulsory school age. When they pass compulsory school age, you're going to exit them with the appropriate exit code, which in all likelihood will be a dropout code. And if they had entered grade 9 and had a grade 9 cohort date prior to when they exited to 8,300 status, then they will count as a dropout for that cohort. I think I got it that time.
Yep, that's right.
All right.
That's all.
Okay. All right. Next topic. We We have a new charter school in the region that opened last year. So just a reminder, this guidance has been around for a long time, but you may not have encountered it with students attending charter schools. So if you have a classified student in your district that attends a charter school, the district of residence, that would be you, has CSE responsibility. So you would have a 5905 enrollment for those students. Okay, and you can see that in the table of reporting responsibilities in actually row 4 shows that the district of residence has that responsibility. Okay.
No questions.
Moving on. Okay, this one should, for migrant students, there used to be a 0330 program service record that says Title 1 Migrant Services Code. All right, that code has been removed. It was not really, hadn't been used for a while because basically migrant students are identified by the Met's office, Migrant Education Office, and should continue to be reported with the migrant indicator in the demographic record. Okay, so if you had old 0330 program records that had been rolling forward, you probably got errors on those on first imported programs this year. That code has gone away, so you want to no longer import that information. Questions?
No questions.
Okay, good. All right, some new course codes for 23-24 and some removed course codes that can no longer be used. And I just want to mention one of the codes listed under the removed codes, the Algebra 1 Common Core code. It was actually added back into level 0 as there are certain circumstances when it is needed. But if your Algebra 1 curriculum aligns to the new standards, your Algebra 1 course codes should be reported with the new 02050 course code. Now, if they are still being reported with that Common Core course code, unfortunately, you won't get an error because it's still legit in level 0. So you need to review your Algebra 1 courses to make sure they are being reported with the correct, in most cases, I think it's going to be the new course code. All right.
About that, Pam, also, I have that data sport ticket in, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
to see if they're gonna add it back into the SIRS manual, because if you try to find it right now, it's currently not in there.
Right, yeah, they had taken it out, they'd taken it out of SIRS, they'd
Yeah.
taken it out of level 0, they put it back in level 0, but they haven't put it back in SIRS yet, but it will
Yes.
go back in. But the reminder here is that take a look at your Algebra 1 course codes and make sure that they align to the curriculum that's being taught. Okay. They're also in the FAQ question about course codes. There's a list of courses taught by counselors. As we have not yet imported course instructor assignment, we're not quite sure yet how this is going to work. My first question that came to mind was, if I report a counselor linked to one of these courses, do I also have to indicate that that counselor is a teacher in Staff Snapshot? We need to get that answer, and we will get it out to you when we do. But that is something new in the SIRS manual this year, that there are courses that can be taught by counselors. We just need to figure out all the details of how that needs to be set up. Okay. I see a question, what should we do with the 0330 program codes in our SMSs? If you have some that are unended, I would just say end them before the beginning of this school year with a 6/30/2023 exit date.
And there's another question. The new Algebra 1 course code is not yet in school tool. Does anyone know when it will be? I had another district inquire about that as well. And we reached out to student services about it.
Okay. All right, yeah, we can pass that information on to student services, and they can help get that answer out to you, and also to Jamie's question, the new code for staff assignment for equity director isn't there yet either.
Okay.
So, okay, and Joan says they updated to the new version last night. It's still not there.
Okay.
So we're gonna pass that on to our colleagues in
Yes.
student services and try to get an answer for you on that as to when it will be available. Okay.
All right, that's all the questions for now.
All right. Moving on, this is just a reminder, the 2020, for those of you who are anxious to get into working on your out of cert reports, which of course requires that you have course instructor assignment imported to the data warehouse. The 2023 course crosswalk is available and it's on your IRSP, so you'll need to go there to get it. Okay. Just as a reminder there. Okay, with our, over the last few years, with our changes in attendance, we have an update to the area of, to the guidance on attendance reporting for students who are enrolled but not yet scheduled. And that's a common occurrence. It may be a couple days before their schedules are set, they can meet with their guidance counselors. So most districts are now set up with their SMS to report attendance records as present out remote for these students. All right, enrolled but not scheduled. And according to the current guidance, students cannot be reported as such for more than 10 days. And that's a limit that's new this year. And there were some students who were continually reported that for an extended period of time, and state ed said that, you know, basically that's not appropriate. If they're enrolled, they need to have a schedule.
We have a few questions.
Okay.
So the first one is regarding what you're talking about. Is this like projected? I'm thinking projected enrollment is what Stacy's referring
Yeah,
to.
I mean, no, these would be actual enrollments reported to state ed. So if you have a student enrolled, they shouldn't be enrolled. They shouldn't, once they're enrolled with you, they should be in attendance. They should have a schedule. And so that there's state ed is saying the guidance is a 10-day limit on when they can be in that status.
And then someone else is saying we do not start the enrollment until the student walks into the building. Too many migrant students that register and never show.
I will just say on that, in that area, I had a conversation with a state ed official regarding students in this situation. And the feedback that I got was, once you send a request for records, that student is yours and you are accountable for them. If they never show, it would be your responsibility to determine why they didn't show. And if, you know, to try to track down where they've gone. All of this with the 8,300 enrollments is state ed's attempt to not have students slip through the cracks. So once you send the request for records and get that information from their prior school district, that student is considered yours. And if they do not show, then they should be exited with a 400 and enrolled for census purposes only, unless you can identify where they went. Okay.
And that's the last question for now.
Okay.
That's me.
Yeah. Oh, and let me turn this over to Sam.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, so our testing department has a separate presentation, which will be shared later in this meeting. So this is just an overview since we're in the new section still regarding assessment fact that Science 5 has a new assessment this year. And in level 0, you'll notice if you go in there, the CCR, the College and Career Readiness section, and the alt read categories, which are underneath the assessment area, have been replaced with a new test group of ADV for advanced in the 23-24 school year. So it's going to look a little bit different. And the NISA slot level 2 is now split into one level for grade 1 and one level for grade 2. So our testing gurus will go into all the details of testing items at a later point. All right, so moving on. Thank you. So for this year, NICED has also renamed the test group LOTE to World Languages. So you'll see this change already. It's in the SIRS manual, the renaming of it. However, in level 0, when you go under the assessments in the reports section, you'll still see a LOTE category. So that could lead to some confusion because it's still the old naming convention, but that's what you're going to see under the test breakdown report on level 0. Will still be the loads. All right. So partner project fact, for districts that report it, there has been a slight update to the project number, you'll notice. So instead of the project number being school year specific, so you see how last year it had the 23 in there, the state has decided to make it a little more generic, not school year specific, so that middle number is going to be a 00. Um, and as a reminder, only state approved projects should be reported for partner project fact, not local programs that are not part of a grant. Okay. So I don't see any questions, so I'm going to move on to our reporting reminders section. So for our season DDCs, these will be reminders, nothing new in this area, but we do have a lot of new DDCs in our region. So some of these may be new information for you. So let's dive in. All right, so to help keep you on track about some upcoming items, we've created this checklist. I personally use lists all the time to help keep me, um, on task personally and professionally. It just helps me, go down the list of items. So just note here in this list, staff evaluation for 22-23 and August grads, they have a deadline of tomorrow at noon. So if you haven't looked at that yet for your district, you want to make sure to get that in by the deadline. So we're going to go into each of the items on this checklist on the upcoming slides. Okay, so first we're going to go into summer school. So this is a reminder, not because the deadline's coming up anytime soon, but it's not until August, but more because we want to try to be proactive. So by next like June or July, it might be difficult to remember who attended your summer school. So many months earlier. So get the data in now while it's fresh and you can remember where that list of students is who attended, because some districts keep separate lists, what subjects they took so that they'll get reported accurately. And specific information required for summer school participants hasn't changed in recent years. So this is truly just a reminder. But a student class grade detail record for summer school courses must be reported only for those students who take a course to make up incomplete or failed course credit, and those who earn graduation credit or a final grade that needs to go on their transcript. So if that's the case, the student class grade detail must have a yes on the credit recovery code field. Okay. No questions there. I'll move on. to August grads tomorrow for that deadline for cohort calculations. So August graduates, they need a few items. So they need the credential type, the career path, the exit date, and the code. If they earned a seal, possibly for biliteracy or civic readiness, you want to make sure to report that. And if you want to see your current August graduates in level 0, you can go to reports and enrollment and the credential counts. So since August grads are the first and the only grads reported thus far for the 23-24 school year, you can see the count reported under that current year count field. So that'll show you how many you have at this point. So once the data is migrated from level 0, then you'll be able to see it on the SIRS 201 cohort report, and that shows the August graduates. Now, currently, to help districts meet this deadline, the state is refreshing that report, the 201, Mondays and Wednesdays. So that should have been updated as of yesterday.
Sam, we have a question on from Julianne.
Yes.
About the summer school, and she says districts complete summer school, not BOCES.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. And then is the staff evaluation verification form available yet on the portal? So the way it works, the certification form for staff eval, once you submit the data, it migrates and it shows up on the SIRS 331 report, which only takes an overnight refresh. Then your certification form will be on SEDMON, which is accessed through the New York State portal. All right. Okay, so if there's no other questions on those, I'll go over to digital resources. So I've included this because, as Helen mentioned earlier, the data poll is in January. But it is a continuous collection, and unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. So we need to think about how your district is collecting these surveys and how they're reporting them each fall, because a new survey is expected. You can't reuse last year's data, and you want to help. The state has tried to make this a little easier, where they allow the one question and the survey date. So that does come up a lot. So it's no longer a full survey that is being required. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there for a second because I see some stuff popping up.
Yeah, you have a question on what level 2 report can you check summer school? So I was just typing to Gabby that you can go to the reasonableness report and look at programs, and you should see your summer school program service records reported in there.
Yes. So the 401.
Yeah.
And then Ed, did NICED share the statewide results for last year? Are you recalling about the digital resources or 3 to 8 results or for the state? I'm not sure which you're looking for.
Well, while we wait to hear from Ed, just a comment from Joan. It would be so nice if each question could state select one response only.
Yes.
Yeah, no disagreement.
We agree. And then just going back to Erin, the survey start date and end date have to be the same, correct? The start date I'm just trying to remember. I thought there was only one field for that, off the top of my head. I don't remember an end date. I know there's a school year date.
Yeah.
I remember that in that template. So we'd have to refer to the eScholar template for it just to check.
Okay, and Ed responded with they should be statewide results of the data parents submitted to show percentages for the question. I mean, there is in the school report card.
I did find a website for that last year. I remember.
There were results. We can track that down and include it in Our
Yeah.
information after the.
Let me just write that
after
down
the
now.
meeting.
Okay, so I'll follow up on that one, Ed, and let you know. Uh, I'll let everybody know in the Q&A.
Yeah,
And then Joan sometimes gets multiple responses in regards to the survey, um, like from the same for the same student, you mean, in the same year? Because if that's the case, the most recent survey will overwrite the prior one in the same school year. Okay. We'll share that out. Did I get all of them? Did I miss anybody? Pam?
I think you got. Yeah, Ed just says great, if we
Okay.
have the website link, and Joan says same question on internet. That I guess they're entering more than one result.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can, I don't know that there's anything we can do about it, but we certainly can mention that to state ed.
Yeah.
And most of our families contradict
gonna
themselves in their responses.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably depends on the day when they fill it out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because whatever the latest one is will be the one that'll be reported. Um, okay, so no other questions on that. I'll move on. Okay, so Beds Day, everybody's favorite topic. So it was October 4th this year, but for our new EDCs, it is always the first Wednesday in October. So I split this time, our Beds Day discussion into two sections as there usually is confusion. So starting with the Beds IMF on the left side. So IMF is the institution master file. It's not collected in SIRS. And those forms are reported by the district and building administrators. And that system, that IMF form, they open on Beds Day, and they're open through mid-November. I think the due date's the 17th off the top of my head, but it's a non-SIRS deadline. So you always want to go by whatever that website says. So at that link, you're going to find that due date, you'll find the forms and instructions, most importantly, right? For all those forms, and it'll tell you what you need in the certain fields. Okay, now moving over to SIRS, which is what we support here at the RIC. So for SIRS on Beds Day, October 4th this year, there isn't really an actual action on that particular day. It's more of a date for us. The real work comes in from reporting all your data up to SIRS and migrating your data from level 0 and making sure that it's getting up to level 2 and verifying it for that preliminary data poll in January. So once your data is migrated, you can start looking at it on the beds reports on level 2. They start refreshing, usually right when level 0 opens. Like I know it's October 17th, right? I know that, but think of all the time it's going to take to get that data up there, resolve errors, migrate it, verify it with your other departments, parties, principals, food service, and account for vacations and school breaks too. So it's going to take time. Like January will be here in a blink. So just make sure you allow enough time for yourself to verify all that data. Okay.
hey, Sam, we have a couple of
Yes.
some suggestions on using scan sheets, and that information is good feedback. There's one concern I have, that they're using an electronic form and that they've annotated the question. State Ed requires that the questions are asked as written and no changes
Yes.
are made. So you're actually not allowed to modify those questions at all. So just I wanted to give you that feedback, that you need to be, that any changes should be removed, that the State Ed wants those questions to be asked as written.
Yes.
So,
Unfortunately, they do.
yes, however much they cause problems with multiple answers and everything like that. Although if you do have, an area that you continually get multiple answers where only one is expected, we can feed that information back to state ed, and maybe as a whole, they can review the questions and see if they want to change them. So I'm sorry for that.
No, it's fine. And I saw you mentioned about the paper sheets. So some districts can do that. If they don't want to use their portal or another electronic version, so they would just reach out to our testing department to see if they can do that for them. And somebody else says something here. We tried doing it digitally the first year, got a very low response rate. Asked the parents to assign many times. But yeah, we have unfortunately heard that through from many districts. Some I know you can. I think some SMSs will make it where you have to complete the survey before seeing like a report card, but that is a district decision of how you want to handle those. Um, and just I'll forward the bill for the extra charge for the duplicate answers. Some other and BOCES we try during open school nights. I've heard that as well, or parent teacher conferences. And Vista forms, which get emailed weekly until they respond. Wow, weekly. And registration. Yeah, so there's lots of ideas here, for
I'm thinking this is going to lend itself to one of our breakout rooms in a future meeting where you guys
yeah,
share your ideas on how you've been successful and problems you've encountered with the survey, because it is across the board, and we see here at the
it
state
is.
level too, that people have difficulty collecting this information. And obviously it's not going to go away, but
Yeah.
maybe at a future meeting, have a breakout room where you guys can share ideas about
Yeah.
what's worked,
I
or
just
go and listen
notated it.
and pick up ideas about what has worked for other districts.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for that. That's very helpful. Um, okay, so if we could go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So just continuing on with Beds Day. So data will be used in the calculation of state aid allocations. So it's important for your district because accurate data is dollars for your district. So just keep in mind, just because you didn't receive a level 0 or L1C error doesn't mean the data is accurate. So you need time to verify it, especially before these deadlines. And like I said earlier, you want to, especially for the January one, you want to review it prior to winter break. So here you can see there's 3 polls through the year, January, March, and the end of year in August. And these are noting the Friday state ed deadlines, but the MHRIC deadline is always the prior Wednesday at noon. So I've also linked here the report guides for the beds reports because the guides can really help you, especially if you're new to beds verification. It'll help you understand and interpret the data that's reported on each of those reports, or maybe you're questioning why a student is not showing on your report. So it'll tell you the logic for those reports, and it'll help you kind of figure out what students should show or should not show on a report, depending on enrollment and all sorts of information. So I've also included the level 2 report refresh link. Now, that is not the one for this year yet, 23-24. The state is still working on updating that. But you can use this as a reference until that other one comes out because it usually is around the same, when the reports are released. So you can use that until that other one gets refreshed there. So you might be wondering, how can I see these beds reports? And that's on my next slide. So it's in level 2 or level 2 RPT. Now this is only if your district grants you access through SEDAS for the level 2 reports. So it's never too early to start verifying. So here you can see the path to find it, the team content, level 2 reports, SEDAS, and then beds. The reason I'm showing you this though is for each of the beds reports, you're going to notice there's a .1 report as well as the original. So what I mean by that is in the screenshot. So you can see there's a SIRS 312 and there's a SIRS 312.1. So the main report without the point 1, it will continue to reflect current migrated data. So anytime you migrate your data, it's going to update on that report. When our first data pull passes in January, you're going to see a snapshot of that data on that point 1 report. So anytime that snapshot passes, January, March, you're going to see that snapshot on that due date of the data that's there. So that can help you as you're going through the year and comparing for the next data pull, preparing for that. You can see where data has changed or something might not have been exactly right. So it does help you to see what that data was on that snapshot day. And again, if you're having trouble seeing those, a student or not, always ask yourself, were they enrolled on Beds Day? Because only the students that are enrolled on Beds Day are going to show on these Beds Day reports. And then if you still can't find the answer, try that report guide because maybe they're not meeting the logic to show up on that report.
Okay,
Okay.
Sam, we got a question from Kathy.
Yes.
She's saying she's now seeing her UPK students showing up on the SIRS 313 beds report. Their UPK program is in a daycare setting, not in one of their buildings, and she wants to know if that's correct.
Don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Kathy,
You said
I don't know off
313?
the top of my head either.
Yeah, SIRS 313, Back and Kill. Okay, so I'll take a look at that.
Take a look and get back to you on that.
Yes, I notated it here. And looks like we have another in regards to the survey. Okay.
Yeah, that's some additional comments on the surveys. So,
Okay.
and Janet did confirm to me that that's how that is correct. That's how their beds report shows.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if there's no other questions, going to switch gears totally. It's a different topic. Homebound attendance. So again, it's a reminder, but I've included this because there's usually some reporting discrepancies in this area. So when the state reopened last year for that attendance, we found quite a bit of it was due to homebound. So I included that so that we can kind of get ahead of it a little bit. So you may need to, as a district, if you don't have one already, you might need to set up some kind of internal protocol so that these students are updated appropriately. So think about who's taking attendance. Do you have an attendance officer or who's taking attendance or reporting attendance for your homebound kids? But even to report attendance, to back up a moment, you need a day calendar for homebound. So so that attendance can be reported. So that might be the first step. Find out if you have a homebound day calendar. Find out if the right grades and your instructional days are updated appropriately for that. And then when you actually do have a student placed at homebound, if they're not present for instructions, they should be marked absent. So I did include the SIRS pages here, 47 and 61, which goes into the details of homebound attendance and the requirements that the students should be meeting for SIRS reporting. Okay. I'm going to pause there for a moment, make sure there's no questions. Okay. All right, so moving on to the next topic is for course and course instructor assignment. So we're already at import number 4 this week. So time's literally flying by. There's gonna be snow before you know it, right? So import 4, it includes course, and then import 5 should include course instructor assignment imports. So you want to start checking or thinking about your courses and teachers to make sure they're set up correctly, especially if you have any new courses for your building or teachers that are new to a building. You want to make sure they're assigned appropriately. So course and course instructor assignment are the two building blocks to help identify teachers that are teaching out of certification. Okay, so I've included the link there that has the 23-24 course catalog, and it'll help you see if your courses are defined with the appropriate state course codes. So if there's an incorrect course code, that's usually one of the reasons that a teacher could be flagged for out of certification. There are a few other reasons, such as indicators like special ed, ENL, itinerant. They're missing that flag. They could come up for out of certification because of that. I know the deadline for out of certification is quite far out, but you know, you do want to think about if you have any teachers currently teaching out of certification that you know of, because it would be now. Now is the time to complete the BOCES form for incidental approval. So if you have any teachers, you may need to contact your local BOCES, and most of them have a form that you have to fill out and the superintendent has to approve, which you can imagine, takes time to go through that whole process. So don't wait until right before the May deadline to try to get that approval from your BOCES, because it might not be enough time to allow for that approval to happen. Okay. So start thinking about that now.
And
And then
Sam, we have a question from Kathy. How does
yes.
everyone collect demographic information on itinerant teachers? And I've worked with several districts that do have itinerant teachers, and I believe the source is really whoever is employing that teacher. If it's a BOCES teacher
Okay.
that is working in your district, you would go back and contact the BOCES to get the details that you need. And mind you, for itinerant teachers, you do not have to report all the fields that you need to report for teachers that are employed in your district.
Yeah, it's a lot less. Thank you.
Okay, and if anybody else has any, can enter that in the chat, any other suggestions for Kathy?
Yes, please.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so I just have a few more notes on this slide here. So bilingual teachers, there's not an indicator for that. Instead, they are identified by a primary instruction language in the course instructor assignment record. So if there's a language other than English in that field, that's how we will know there's a bilingual teacher, bilingual class, that is going to be reported. Now, if it's just an advanced language course, not a bilingual language course, the advanced language courses are still reported with English as the primary language. Okay. All right. So
we've got one more question from Sherry.
Yes.
Are pre-K daycare center teachers considered itinerant, and they're employed by Tots and Toyland and Healthy Kids? Itinerant teachers are only teachers employed by other school districts or BOCES. So no. They have to look a little bit further into the details on that, but no, they would not be considered itinerant because they're not employed by a district or BOCES. But I have to look into exactly how you would report them.
All right, I notated that one.
Yeah, I think if they're working at a daycare center and you have a contract with the daycare center, then
yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, by extension, their district, but I don't quote me on that.
We'll double check.
And get back to you. So, all right, we'll get back to you on it, but I can tell you no on the itinerant. So
okay, I got all the details for it. All right, so let's see. Okay, so if we could move on to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So next week will be import number 5, which, like I said, is course instructor assignment, but also student class entry exit should be included. Now remember, this is an import schedule as a guide. Every district might be at a different point depending on how many errors you're getting in certain domains. So just keep an eye on the deadlines, make sure that your imports are aligning with that, especially. So you can check your level 0 dashboard to see, how your district is aligning with the import schedule, but it's not something set in stone per se. So here I just wanted to say that the teacher of record is a staff member that oversees instruction for the course and has a start and end date for that course. And the teacher of record needs to be in staff snapshot as teacher, and they must be New York State certified. Okay, so that's not anything new. This is the same as usual. It's just a reminder here. But before I pass it over to Helen, is there any other questions for me? All right. And Julie, I'm with you on the snow day. Yep, I'm okay with that. All right, thank you so much.
The chat is quiet, so on to Helen.
Excellent, thank you. Before we started this meeting today, Sam said, do you want to switch the break and the breakout rooms? The break is first. And the truth of the matter is I don't actually want to switch it, but seeing the time and knowing how long we've been at this already, I would like to give everyone the opportunity for just a quick 5-minute break. So I see that it's 10:31 right now. Let's reconvene at about, let's say 10:40. Okay, so at 10:40 we're going to start the breakout rooms, and take a couple minutes, take a breather. Please come back by 10:40, at which time we will begin the breakout rooms. Okay, so thank you, and we will be with you, see you again at 10:40. Okay, so welcome back to the DDC meeting. I hope you enjoyed your quick break. There will be another break coming up after our breakout rooms. And for the breakout rooms, a lot of people were requesting networking opportunities, an opportunity to talk to your peers, to talk to your colleagues in other districts. So this is the intent of the Choose Your Own Adventure breakout rooms. This is not designed as an additional way for us to tell you things. This, the intent behind this is so that you can all communicate with each other, ask each other questions, tell each other what your best practices are, and collaborate with each other, have some camaraderie. So we do have a number of breakout rooms pre-made for you. You will be able to choose your own adventure, choose your own breakout room. The rooms that we have set up are beginning of year data reporting. So in that room, go ahead and talk about anything that we just talked about, what your practices are. We do have 3 rooms set up for student management systems. There's an eSchool data room, a school tool room, and an infinite campus room. These rooms will have a representative from student services in them, so that they're available if any questions come up that you as a group can't necessarily answer. Again, it's not designed as a question and answer session. It's not designed for them to be telling you anything or presenting anything to you. They will just be there if there's, if you have a question for them, or if they hear something that isn't quite right, or needs a little bit more, or things like that. So the discussions are free form. There's no particular topic in these rooms other than If you're a district who uses School Tool and you want to talk about how to do School Tool things, you might choose that room. Okay. We also have a data privacy room. So anything about DPO, anything about ransomware, anything about keeping your district's data safe. You can talk about that in the data privacy room. The coffee talk room, I spelled that phonetically. That is available for anyone who wants to just kind of hang out, talk with their colleagues casually, not necessarily on any particular topic. What did you do on your summer vacation? Who's going to win the big game? How do you take your coffee? Whatever you want to talk about in the coffee talk room, that is very free form. And then, of course, there is the Stump the Rick room. And there will be a representative from the RIC in the Stump the Rick room. So if you have, and that room is particular if you want to ask questions, if you have a tough situation that you don't know what to do with, if you have questions that aren't necessarily relatable to the rest of what we're talking about in the meeting, have at it. See if you can stump the Rick. Maybe we'll have an answer and maybe we won't. And if we don't, we will make note of your questions and certainly get back to you. During these breakout sessions, please choose a representative in each room to talk about your session back to the whole group when we reconvene in 30 minutes. And this doesn't have to be formal at all. This can be just a 2 to 3 minute, here's what we talked about, or here's a great idea that someone had, or here's a big idea question that we were talking about or thinking about. So like I said, you will have the opportunity to choose your own room. Hopefully I will be able to find how I set up. There it is, the breakout rooms. In a minute, what's going to happen is you will see something that comes up on your screen that will give you the choice of which room to choose. Please choose one room. If you get in the room and there's like 2 people in there and you have a nice conversation for a couple of minutes, getting to know your colleague, but you want to join a larger group, you're absolutely free to change rooms as well. Are there any questions before I go ahead and open up the breakout rooms?
There's somebody who maybe has something on their keyboard. They're adding a lot of things into the chat. I don't know if that's intentional.
You're a little bit garbled, Pascal, but what I heard you say is something about typing questions into the chat.
Helen,
Yeah.
there's some stray comments going in, and I think they're aware of it.
Okay.
So it's subsided, but thanks, Pascal. Yeah. So any questions for Helen, either unmute or enter it in the chat. I think we've stabilized. So
okay, great. All right, well, hearing no questions, I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. The room will automatically close and kick you back into this general session in 30 minutes. So you have a good long while to talk with each other. And that will put us at about 11:15 or so. Again, after we have our we reconvene, we'll be taking a break. So see you about 11:15. Here we go. Choose a room.
now.
People should be coming back from the breakout rooms now. We'll be back in just a few seconds. All right. All rooms should be closed.
Yes.
Back.
Ellen, may I just say one thing?
Please.
I just wanted to let Mary know that I'll follow up with her on email to finish answering the question regarding the teacher record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so I think everyone is back. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that was enjoyable and informative for you. Everyone should have chosen a representative from their room. So let's go into those just quickly. At the beginning of year data reporting, I didn't see anybody in that room, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that unless my eyeballs deceived me and there were people who wanted to talk about that. The eSchool data room, I think, started off with a few people. Was there anyone from the eSchool data room who wanted to share?
Hello, this is Christina. We just talked about some of the things that we were discussing from previous tickets, but nothing really new or exciting went on in that room. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks,
Okay,
Christina.
thanks. Yeah.
How about school tool? I noticed there were a whole bunch of people in the school tool room.
Good morning. I was chosen as our person to report here. So a short list of things that we discussed. We talked about the new grade book and how it is still not successfully syncing grades from Google Classroom. We talked about how to mass enter comments and grades in the new grade book. We talked about our new version that was installed today for some of our districts, and I haven't seen any problems with that so far. And towards the end, we wrapped up by talking about how to make mass changes to students via student IDs from file and using that to add and remove program services. And finally, we talked a little bit about using dashboards to identify demographics for students on the ineligibility list.
So some data reporting, some how-tos, some data viz. Great.
Good conversation, I thought.
Nice. How about the Infinite Campus group?
I'll speak up here because we didn't follow the rules and we didn't pick anybody to report back. Sorry about that. We had a quiet group. There were a couple ideas exchanged about custom fields and custom tabs and making Infinite Campus do the things that that you want it to do, and have, the data you want at your fingertips as easily as possible. And we went on to talk a little bit about Central Sync and setting that up and getting information over to Frontline and back. And talked about the Infinite Campus user group, which is a good resource for everybody. In most cases, we've got a lot of new districts on Infinite Campus. So there were a lot of, getting started up, getting familiar with it kind of questions. And anybody else in that group, where if I missed anything, please, join in.
For those folks who might not be aware, we only recently started supporting Infinite Campus at the RIC. So it's supporting that is new to us, and we do have a number of resident experts in that, however. So I'm glad that there was at least a little bit of discussion there. Data privacy group, I noticed a core group of 4 or 5 people who stayed there the whole time. You have anything to share?
We didn't pick anybody either, but we did talk about the fact that this is a frustration that is kind of in every district. There is so much that needs to be done, little resources coming our way. like I said to them, I guess we have to wait for something bad to happen in order for anybody to really take notice. Even if we do all this work, people in the district just don't understand it still. And it's just really, really, really frustrating.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's kind of like the town doesn't put up a stop sign until there's a crash at the intersection, right? So yeah, data privacy is a huge, enormous topic worthy of entirely other groups than us. But all districts should really be focusing on that because of the high level of importance. Thanks, Stacy. I did not see any people in the coffee talk. I won't take it personally. And there was a pretty good group who tried to stump the RIC. Who wants to share about that?
So I can share. So we had a really good conversation. We started off talking about computer-based testing and had a conversation around, you know, the need for and how to most effectively get the accommodations into the system, and discussed kind of the DDC's role in that versus having, you know, building level roles to kind of oversee and manage that. And then the conversation shifted a little bit into more like centrisync and what do you do when things aren't syncing appropriately and level 0 has tons of errors and you can't figure out why. And so just kind of going back and forth and sharing some ideas around that. So it was a very productive conversation. And we almost stumped the RIC, but we have, you know, guidance on who to reach out to find the answer. So I'll say it's like a maybe stump the RIC.
Excellent. Good to hear. Thank you, Dr. Didino. All right. So does anybody at this point have any questions or pressing comments that they'd like to make before we take another break? Hearing none, I'm going to assume it is break time. It will be a 15-minute break. You can all enjoy this video, maybe, if I can get it to play. And when it's over, it will be time to meet. If I can't get it to work, then let's say, oh, here it comes. All right. Let's see if I can share my sound. All right, see you in 15 minutes. Hey, sorry about that, folks, for anyone who was watching along. Let's see if we can get it to start back up. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to the DDC meeting. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special services team. Is it Sarah who's presenting today?
It is me. Yes, Helen. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Sarah Cross, and I am a member of the Special Services team here at the MHRIC. Along with me are my coworkers, Sean Cheatham and Samantha Villas. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first up, we're going to talk about the current events, the things that are going on with your special education data. So you may have noticed that during import week 3, I believe it was, October 9th, started your program fact auto imports. So just a refresher, the auto imports in regards to your special ed data are coming out of Frontline and being sent to level 0, and that's coordinated by us here at the MHRIC. The program fact imports include our type of disability, safety net, alternate assessment, and Section 504. Those will be running, again, started October 9th and all the way through to the end of the school year until August. And then you may have noticed that just this week, our Beds Day snapshot has started. So that started October 16th, and that's going to be running through the school year as well, since Bed Day did just happen, and we're going to start looking at that data with your special ed offices. And just as a reminder, those auto imports do run Monday through Friday. If you ever come in on a day and you see that maybe they didn't run or something looks a little odd, don't hesitate to reach out to the special services team so we can go ahead and take a look at that. Next slide, please. So what's up and coming for your special ed data? That will be our October Beds Day snapshot, as I was just mentioning. So for your 23-24 school year, the October snapshots are verification reports 1 through 9 and the PD 6. Our Beds Day was on October 4th, 2023, and the snapshot is just taking a look at students that were in attendance on that day, specifically relating to special ed, who had programs and services on that particular day. Just as a couple notes about certification, certification date has already changed. Just when I looked before submitting this slide, I had to update the certification date. It is now January 15th, 2024. Keep in mind that these dates are subject to change. As I just mentioned, it just did. It's already a week later than it was last year. Last year, they did push it a week later. So I'm thinking maybe that's why they did the same. So just keep that in mind. Also, we know certification is January 15th, but really what that means for you guys, the data coordinators, is that the migration deadline is actually the Wednesday before. So Wednesday, January 10th, 2024, that's really the day that you guys are going to want to keep on your calendars to be your migration deadline. And I did see somebody mention that that is a holiday. So that is actually, I may have an error in my slide. It might be January 16th. Whatever that Monday is what the PD system is reporting at this time. So if that's a holiday, I'll have to look into that a little further. Thank you for that note. The PD6, just as a side note, it's a little bit separate from the verification reports. That certification date is also a little bit later, and that's going to be March 1st, 2024. I do want to notate that we are just beginning our October snapshot workshops. So with your special ed offices, so we are starting to work with them on these errors. So you may see those starting to be resolved. But if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out with us, and we can work with you as well as your special ed teams to help you with any of these errors. Next slide, please. So Title A, Part 1, Program Services Extract. If you're familiar, this is a service that the MHRIC provides for our frontline RTI and our RTI Edge districts. So if you're a district that doesn't utilize frontline RTI or RTI Edge, this service isn't available to you because we don't have access to your RTI system. So what is this? Title I imports. We will be sending out an authorization to your districts starting next week. You should be getting them. And we just require that communication be sent back to us, signed by your business official. And that gives us the permission to perform these imports for your Title I Part A data for you. We work in tandem with the student services team. So we hear from them. We do our side of the Title I data. So just keep that in mind. I do want to notate any communication, please do that through the DW extracts at mhric.org email. That's how we keep track of who's turned in their authorizations, who has not. And then we can go ahead and start that. Also, Title I imports will begin November 13th, 2023. It is a little bit earlier this year. We're starting it with import number 6. We're doing this because New York State Ed actually can go in and take a look at your Title I data information at any time. So previously, when we were waiting until December, January, and we were troubleshooting some things with various districts that were, and then were not, and then were doing their Title I data, we noticed that time that it took to get things sorted sort of delayed things. So we've decided to start it a little bit earlier so we can help you guys clean anything up, work out any kinks that do arise. The next slide, please. So if you're thinking to yourself, does this apply to me? I'm not sure. You can always shoot us an email at that DW extracts and we can talk with you directly. But this is what happened last year. So it might be a little bit different for this year. Like I can already tell you that one of the districts we served last year no longer has frontline RTI, so we won't be serving them again for the Title I imports this year. So this can kind of give you an idea of what you did last year. Will you be doing the same again this year? A couple things to notate. Did your district do targeted assistance, which is all that TAS codes that you see? Did you do school-wide assistance, which is that SW code that you see? And how did you receive that data? All of my frontline RTI and some of my RTI Edge districts, we submit it into level 0 for you. Those data anywhere districts, I send you a secure code via data anywhere. And then you have your districts on the side that opted out of the special services team importing their Title I data. So again, things could change. You will be hearing from us about those authorizations. If you have any questions, though, don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you are not on the list, that means that you are not a frontline RTI or a RTI Edge district. So it's just not applicable to your district. We don't have access to your RTI information. Therefore, we can't import anything for you. Great question. Thank you. And new updates, last but not least. So this is an FYI to all of our districts. This is a big change. So I do expect that you guys may have a lot of questions. Just know that we have very limited information at this time. We're still trying to gather it from New York State Ed, and we're passing it off to you as it comes to us. So what is this change? It's with your VRs 11 and 12. This affects all districts. All districts will now be required to report all SE event indicators every year. Formerly, the SE events were on a rotational basis. My special ed offices are used to me saying them. They're the special indicators. You don't have to worry about it every year, once every 6 years. Well, I take that back. That's not the case for indicators 11 and 12. So what are the SE events? Indicator 11, that's your child find time leave evaluations and eligibility. Indicator 12, that's your early childhood transition students. And then there's your verification report 14, which, just as a side, like I have on the screen, this one was already due every year, but it is an SE event, so I've just included it on the slide so you're aware of it. More information is coming from New York State Ed. Like I said, we're just releasing this to you as we get it. So we will try to keep you as updated as possible on that. But do notate that, and we are communicating this with our special ed offices as well. I am just going to take a look. I saw Ed had another question. Do we report via regular uploads? That's something that I would actually have to look into further, since I don't have my hand on that side of the things. For our districts that don't use RTI, I would have to inquire further, Ed, but I can let you know. Thank you for your questions. And then I believe next slide, that might be, yes, that's all we have for today. Sorry if I rushed anything through that. Don't hesitate to reach out to the special services team with any questions. Our group email is on the screen. It comes to all of us. We're more than willing to help you out with any questions that you have. If it is Title I related, do try to reach out to that DW extracts, but we have our hands in both sides. So we will be able to assist you with that. And thanks for joining.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so who wants to talk about staff data? I do. As we mentioned in the beginning of our meeting today, there's a number of deadlines this week, one of which is staff eval, and I'm not going to go into this in any detail at all, since there's only a handful of outstanding LEAs who have yet to report, but here's a quick rundown. Staff evaluation is for teachers and principal data only. Each evaluated staff should have the 3 required scores. There's a handful, like 1 or 2 districts, who use the optional scores as well, and you know who you are, so I'm not going to call you out. If you are certifying the data or telling the superintendent where to certify, there's a new requirement that we've mentioned previously. I think Sam talked about it earlier on in the meeting, called SEDMON. SEDMON is an acronym, like we have lots of acronyms. This is for SED, so State Education Department Monitoring and Vendor Performance System. In order to use SEDMON, you need the SEDAS entitlement in order to get there. So through the portal is how you would access that. And if you don't see it, it's because you don't have the proper SEDAS entitlement. If you need that SEDAS entitlement, you should reach out to your superintendent or their delegated SEDAS administrator to set you up with that. At the bottom of the slide here, there are a number of links. The APPR closeout memo, as well as reminders and FAQs, and additional resources regarding staff evaluation. Also, we sent out a number of training modules a number of times over the past few months. If you need them for some reason, here they are again. An item that falls under the upcoming deadlines category, but is often overlooked, is staff snapshot. Since it's required to be imported prior to the first import of demographics, districts usually have this information loaded well ahead of the deadline for the first data pull. So why do we have it here? Well, in addition to loading the data, you want to make sure that you have time to review it. We often see teachers who are no longer in the district being reported simply because they rolled forward from the previous year, or teachers who have changed buildings but weren't updated. So getting this data complete and accurate will save time and energy later when you begin to import domains that have dependencies on this data. And of course, the Student Light does have a dependency on this data, which is why we require the first upload to be the staff snapshot. Okay. So for staff assignment, that's another thing that we already discussed during this meeting, but so refer to those new requirements earlier on. As you can see, the staff assignment links links principals to students, and you should report all non-teaching professional staff. And there is an assignment code and description list in the SIRS manual, which lists all those teaching and professional staff. And the basic rule you should go by is that if they have someone in district in one of those positions that are listed in the assignment code and descriptions in the SIRS manual, then that staff member should be reported. And you can verify these data by using the SIRS 318 staff assignment verification report, which looks like this, give or take. These are the settings that you would want to use, and then you would get a report that looks like this. Pam, you're on the horizon.
Oh, you're funny. Thank you. Okay, so on the horizon, these are just a few topics that are upcoming. There will be, or has recently been, an update to the import schedule that was only recently sent out because of the delays at state ed in getting us their schedule. But the point to look for in this one is that the SE events will now be starting with import number 6, as Sarah had mentioned. So Helen, I think, has distributed this both by email and Google Calendar for your convenience. So just want to make sure that you have the most recent copy when you're referring to it.
Just to add to that, once it is updated, a new version will be emailed to the field, and that new version will replace the old version on the Google Calendar. So it'll be available for download.
So bookmarking the Google Calendar might be a good idea so that you can always have access with a click to the most recent schedule. Okay, so here's some information that actually has no information about the opening of level 0 historical. We don't know yet, and we'll let you know as soon as it state ed opens it up. You know, that's all we can say about that. They're hopefully going to open it up earlier than they did last year, but you know, promises. Okay, and then the final thing I wanted to mention to you is Salesforce. This is a new tracking system that's being used here at the RIC, or a ticketing system to keep track of all the questions and emails and phone calls that we are handling. It will on occasion send out notifications to interested parties. So if you send me an email, you are an interested party on that email. And depending on the status of the ticket, it may send out an email to you. For now, if you receive one of these notifications, as you can see pictured here, says reminder from Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center. If you receive one of these emails, there's really nothing you need to do. Going forward, there may be additional functionality that's enabled with this tracking system. And of course, we will let you know about that, you know, as it becomes available. So just know that Salesforce, there's nothing you need to do about it. So you can just delete those emails if you do happen to receive them. We're trying to minimize the number that might be sent out by doing things a little bit differently. But just wanted to let you know that it's nothing to worry about. It's all good. Okay, any questions? I see Sarah posted some information in the chat on the special education information that she had given out. So please take a look at the chat to get an update from Sarah. Okay, then I think back over to Helen.
Yes, thank you, Pam. So testing services has provided their slides for us. However, they won't be presenting today. So I'm just going to run through these slides quickly to show you that they are here. Let's see. We have 2023 August regions. I'll just go ahead and read the slide titles for you. January 2024 regions. There's a slide about NYSA alternative assessment, or more than one slide. Slide about NYSA-TEL and NYSA-SLAT. 3 through 8 computer-based ELA, math and science. New York State testing program schedule. And here is their contact information. Once we send out the materials after the meeting, there will also be this slide presentation where you can read it through at your own pace, as well as a recording from the testing department who will present it to you via video. So to let you all know, and we've talked about this email address throughout the meeting and previous meetings, if you do need to contact us regarding any sort of data reporting, us meaning the data team, if you need to contact us, please reach out to the Data Warehouse Help Desk. The email and phone number are provided here. And this is for districts who are not subscribed to the Data Reporting Assistance Service. If you are subscribed to the Data Reporting Assistance Service, you'll know where to email your questions to, and it's not necessarily here. So if you're not supported, please reach out to datawarehouse@mhric.org.
Okay, Helen, I've got one final question in the chat.
Yeah.
From Sherry, she wants to know, can we find out when the rosters for NYSA will be in the KITE system? I know that the the deadline on the import schedule is next week. So, but I don't know any further details than that. We can follow up with the testing folks to find out, unless somebody's here right now. But we can follow up and find out the answer for you. But I can.
Anybody from testing here?
What's that?
I'm asking if anybody from testing is here.
Okay.
I believe I did check on that for another district. Oh, hello.
Helen, it's November 13th they're going to start, and the students should all be in by November 17th.
Thanks, Loretta.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. The 2023-24 meeting dates are as indicated here. Please mark your calendars. The registration links have been sent out to the field. They will be sent out again. So if you haven't registered yet for these meetings, you'll have plenty of opportunity to do that going forward. No problem. Put them on your calendars, save the dates. And they all are virtual meetings. Does anyone have any final questions before we end our show today? We are scheduled until 1 o'clock. However, it is just after 12, and so you are going to get to reclaim some time today. If there are any final questions, we're happy to entertain them now.
Okay, I don't see anything. I hope
Hey.
everybody enjoyed our presentation and our fractals, just in case, I gotta bring that up.
I hope the kaleidoscopic timer there didn't injure anyone.
Yeah.
and that it was.
Hey, Helen, I do have a question. I just
Yes.
gotta, I mean, this is, nobody needs to stay for this, but since you're here, I was gonna ask you anyway. I know I filled out forms. I think they went to John. I can't think of his last name right now, in regards to who should have access to regions and ordering materials. If the superintendent wants me to update something, but he's saying he sees it in the business portal. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Loretta, do you want to address that?
Hi, Julie. I can actually speak to that.
Hey, John. Yeah, John, I couldn't think of your last name. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you. So, and in terms of ordering like the test booklets,
Yes.
the superintendent usually has access to do that, but can also delegate other people to order.
Yes.
Or the principals have access.
Yes.
Yes.
He
But,
wanted, so that's what I think he says. When I took my break, I happened to walk over there. I think he's saying when he looks in business portal, he sees a name that he wants to remove and wants to make sure that the following 3 principals are added. Is that something I can do? How do I update? Or I guess is my question.
Well, I mean, first off,
I think
These are
Oh.
SETAS
yeah,
applications, correct?
Say it again.
These are user rights delegated through SETAS, correct?
I think, I mean, since he said business portal, but the question was in regards to ordering regions.
So, in terms of the online request system, he's going to need to, they're going to need access to SETAS, yes, but to get access to the online request system, he needs to get in touch with SED, because he has to update SEDREF, get their information in there, and then request SED, give them access to the online request system. I can send you the memo on how to update
Yes,
principles.
please.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
I can
you,
do it.
because
Okay.
I think the question was it something that I could help with? But it sounds like it's something he has to do, correct?
Yeah, the
Okay.
ordering or the ordering for the booklets has to be done by the principals of the school buildings.
Yes.
The superintendent can give people access to the business portal, not to the online request system though.
Okay, so I'm hoping I'm asking the right question, but I'll see your form when you send it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, John, you have, now that you're here.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, I see someone else asked something.
We have a question from Ed. How about ordering 3 to 8 PBT and CBTs? If the principal wants the data person to handle it, where does this get enabled? I think you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, they can't have a data person order that. The data person would have to be set as the principal in SEDREF. Only the principals get access to the online request system.
Thanks, John.
Oh, gee, the data person can't do that too. Oh, so sad.
Okay.
all
Helen,
right. Were there any other this is your final opportunity. Speak now or forever hold your peas.
Oh, well, one thing I can speak to, I did see Mike Latino message about proficiency rates. I did email about that. There's reports in level 1 and bars. But yeah, I did send you an email. I'd give if you got it. or if you have any other questions, just let me know.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Anything else in the chat?
No, just
Nothing
somebody
else.
voting that it's time for lunch.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.